Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. It's a great joy for me to be here and to share with you and talk to you about this ancient spiritual tradition. In fact, many of you may know that this tradition has been kept alive, kept flourishing for the last several millennia, thousands of years, by those who have renounced their homes, left everything behind in search of the highest Purushartha, moksha. In today's world, of course, the best means for that pursuit is the path taught us by Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother and Swamiji. So without much delay, I would like to begin this discussion. So as you know, Brahma Sutras, that's the main text that we are going to discuss. Brahma Sutras, most of you, of course, all of you have gone through these trainings in the program where you are introduced to some of the basic teachings of Brahma Sutras, Vedanta. It's the basis of Vedanta philosophy. And in the context of Shankara's commentary, his commentary on the Brahma Sutras constitutes the very foundational text of Advaita philosophy and Advaita way of life. So, as you know, it's also called Vedanta Sutras, Badrayana Sutras, and Brahma Sutras. Brahma itself means Veda, knowledge, supreme realization. So, just a few statements by way of introducing and by way of entering this topic. As you know, Vedas constitute the very spiritual and philosophical foundation of Vedanta. And there are four Vedas, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda. These two main streams constitute the essence of Vedic way of life. Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, and the four Mahavakyas representing all these four Vedas, which I'm not going to discuss those points. But specific to Brahma Sutras, that's what I'm coming to. You know, Brahma itself means Vedanta or knowledge or Brahma Vidya. Sutra is a short, pithy statement. So, Alpaksharam Asandigdam Saravat Vishwato Mukham Astobham Anavadyam Cha Sutram Sutravido Viduhu. This is the classical definition of what Sutra implies. Sujana iti Sutra. There's also a very brief way of defining Sutra. And in the context of Shankaracharya's Brahma Sutra Bhashyam, especially, it's the Sutri, which has got four sutras, you know, Athada Brahma Jijnasa, Jidmadhyasya Yataha, and Shastra Yonitvat. Then Samanyadhyam, the last one, that is Tattu Samanya. These are the four sutras. So I shall straight away come to the text itself, and by way of explaining different statements in the Sutra Bhashya, I shall come back and forth. I shall try to explain different aspects of Vedic philosophy. So, you know, if you have got the text with you, which I'm sure all of you have got a copy of the text, which is Sudhidanji has kindly provided me with. You know, it begins like this. Yushmat asmat pratyaya gocharayoho. That's it begins. Vishya vishayinoho. Tama prakashavat viruddha subhavayoho. You know, I have got a very elaborate commentary. That's why it is a long cap in my statement. Then, Iteredra bhava anubhavatto siddhayam tad dharmanam api sudaram iteredra bhava anubhavatihi iti asmat pratyaya gochare vishayini chidatmage vismat pratyaya gojarasya vishayasya tad dharmanam cha adhyasakha tad nivedena Vishayinah tadharmanam cha vishayadhyasaha mithya bhavidum yuktam. This is the first part of the Bhashya. Now, this is not coming from Shankara. Words are from Shankara, but it is a view expressed by those who are a bit skeptical of the very first topic discussed in the Bhashya. That is Adhyasa. It is called Adhyasa Bhashyam, it is called. Adhyasa, we'll explain in course of time. Adhyasa is not accepted by any of the non-Advaitic philosophers. Because for them, the world is real. Especially I'm talking about the Astika Vedanta philosophers, which include, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, and others, Baladeva, and so on. So Adhyasa is specific to Advaita Vedanta. So the Bhashya begins with a possible doubt called Samshaya. You are familiar with this, so I don't have to go to the details of those aspects. That's why I don't repeat. I'm preaching the choir. This makes any sense. You are being familiar with this. So, there are the Panchangam, Adhikaranam, which I won't discuss. If you have doubt, and later we discuss. So, Purva Paksha enters the scene at the very beginning. This Purva Paksha, according to Shankara, it is a view expressed mostly by the Vaiseshika Paksha of Kannada. So they believe that such an adhyasa is not possible because what is adhyasa after all? We are superimposing the characteristics of Atman on Anatman and the characteristics of Anatman on Atman. So dharma adhyasa, dharmi adhyasa. It goes on discuss. We'll come to that later. So first there's a doubt, a shanka. So it is called shanka, it is called. What is shanka? Shanka is such an adhyasa may not be after all possible. So yushmat. Yushmat implies, vishaya. And asmat stands for vishayi, is called. In a broader sense, you can say object subjects. So Vishaya is the entire Anatman, and Vishayi is I. So this Vishayi can be interpreted in different ways. For the objective world, senses are Vishayi. For the senses, mind is a Vishayi. For mind, Buddhi is a Vishayi. And behind Buddhi, there is I. And this I, it is called Aham Spiranam, is a door to the Atman, the absolute reality. So first of all, this is a Shanka expressed. And another important thing, remember, here somebody may ask this question. This is how it is being discussed in the Bhashya literature. There is no Mangalacharana here. So Mangalacharana is meant for, Sarva Vigna Upasamhara. Sarva means to avoid all possible vignas or problems. Sarvada Sarvakaryeshu Nastitesham Amangalam Yesham Christo Bhagavan Mangalacharano Hari. So a Mangalacharana is necessary. These ideas for information are being put forward by the commentators, and the most important commentator with regard to Chatursutra is concerned, the most important commentator is Vajaspati, who wrote Bhamati. So it was the work of these great commentators that helped us to understand, to enter the Bhashya itself. So according to him, Yushma Dasmat itself constitutes Mangalacharana. Now, how do we understand this? At the end of the statement that I read just now, you can see Tathapi. Tathapi is the response of Advaitins to this statement. So, right from Yushma Dasmat Pratyagocharyoho up to mithya iti bhavidum yuktam. Up to this, it is called Shanka Grantha. It is Samsaya. Somebody who is not willing to accept the logic of Adhyasa is putting forward his objection of his doubt whether such an Adhyasa is after all possible. So there should be Yadyapi before Yushmat. It is not there. How do we know? Because there is the end of Tathavi. Yadyapi Tathavi is that's how the sentence construction is normally formed. So Shankaracharya did not begin his Bhashya with Yadyapi because if he had started with Yadyapi, there will be no Mangalacharana. Because Yushma Dasma Pratyagocharyoho itself is a reference to Paramatma Chaitanya. So that itself constitutes Mangalacharana. That is how these words are being interpreted. Without these interpretations, you won't be able to enter into the philosophical content of the Bhashya literature. That's why I'm just trying to give the theological background of this. Now again, Yushmat Asmat. Yushmat is Vishayam, Asmat is Vishayi. Pratyaya. Pratyaya is nothing but Bodha. So, Yushmat Asmat Pratyaya, Prayoga itself refers to Mangalacharana. And sometimes, this is called Purva Paksha. Actually, Purva Paksha very often can imply a solid counter viewpoint coming from a school of philosophy or philosophers who want to question Advaita. Like Purvamimamsa, we are coming to that. In that Chatusutri contains a lot of objection by Prabhagara. Mostly Prabhagara Bhattamimamsas, you find a lot of objections based on Jaimini, Shavara and others. So, still this is to be considered as a Purva Paksha. And what is the mechanism of Purva Paksha? That should be understood. Otherwise, you being in every bhasha you find somebody raising a question. Why should Shankara refer to this sort of this mutual intellectual dialectic of confrontation between Sankhyas and Advaitins and Puramimams and Advaitins and then Bauddhas and Advaitins and all that. Purva Paksha is a mechanism originally most probably started by even pre-Shankarite non-Vedic philosophers. In fact, Nagarjuna's Madhyamika Karika and also his own well-known book Vigraha Vyavartani, it's a dialectical work, all contain this Purva Paksha mechanism. Somebody is raising a question, and that is a prelude to a greater substantiation of the Siddhanta, which is the view of the writer. So it is called Sthuna Nikhanana Nyaya. Sthuna means a post. So when you want to plant a pillar or a post on the soil, you drive a deep pit, then you install it, then you take it out and go on shaking whether it's actually gone deep enough or not. Again you dig further and again you shake it. So like that, the philosopher expounding his own philosophy, Bhashya, So Sutra to Vannideyatra, Padam Sutranusaribihi. So Patanija Varninde, Bhashyam Bhashyavido Viduhu. So Bhashyagara has a big burden on his shoulders. He has to explain and expound every sutra and sutartha. And then Padam Sutranusaribihi, he has to follow the chronology of each sutra, Janmadi Asya, like that is called line. See, Ataha, Dharma Jijnasa, like that, one after. So Pathanija Varnindi, then he has to substantiate, give Lakshanam and Pramanam for his own statements. Then he has to establish his philosophy. This is the technique. So Purva Paksha is very important. As I mentioned, Purva Paksha is a mechanism employed to substantiate and to give solid foundation to Siddhanta. As you drive a post, you first install it, then you shake, and then you take it out. And so because I could shake and take it out, it means it is not solid enough. Again, you go deeper. So each Purvapaksha, in a way, drives home the Siddhanta. That's the tradition. That's the main purpose of Purvapaksha. So the Purvapaksha is raising this question. Vishayam, that is the external world, Yushmatvam, but actually it means idam. But tvam can mean limited in scope. Idam means everything other than I, that is the aham spirana. And asmat, I. Pratyegochara. So this knowledge of pratyaya, pratyaksha jnanam, how the both are the awareness that your understanding of an object creates in your mind, that is pratyaya. And now they are mutually opposed to each other. Tama prakashavat viruddha swabhavayoh. Now, tama and prakasha. Tama means here darkness. Prakasha means light. Now, prakasha and darkness, tama and prakasha, need not always be opposed to each other. You look in the morning, you find a combination of darkness and also light. So also the evening. So in fact, that's how the Purvapakshins of Advaitins objected to this view. Then we understand the actual implication. So tama here means extreme pitch darkness, and prakasha means the most brilliant light we can think of. And they are actually opposed to each other. That's viruddha swabhava means. They are mutually contradictory. Each rejects the other. Because Vishaya itself means, Shin Banthani, as a meaning, something that binds you, that is Vishaya, objective world. And Vishayi is the seer, the drashta of Vishaya. They are mutually opposed to each other. They cannot coexist. This inability to coexist is the actual meaning and implication of Vairudhyam, Viruddha Swabhava. So according to the Advaitic tradition, they say Vairudhyam means it can be twofold. Saha anavasthayitvam, cannot exist together. Saha anavasthayitvam. If darkness comes, light has to go away. If light goes away, it only means darkness is coming. If darkness is going away, it means light is coming. Now, that can be understood only in the context of extreme darkness, zero light. Extreme light, zero darkness. So, this called Saha Anavasthayitvam is the actual meaning. Otherwise, one may ask this question. Light and darkness need not always be opposed to each other. Even here, there is some degree of darkness. That's why it's not very brilliant. And in extreme darkness, there will be no light. But suppose you can see somewhere there is darkness, there is also light. So, Tama Prakasha Vairudhya means each completely cancelling the other. Saha Anavasthayitvam. The other one is Badhya, Badhaga, Bhavaha. One is Badhya. So when light comes, light is Badhaga and darkness is Badhya. Each cancels the other. So these are two important points to understand. Otherwise, people can, if you read an English, a basic translation, no translation can do justice to any subject, Even driving, you cannot learn driving by correspondence course. What a wonderful book, you can't do that. Actually, Vedanta is also like that. Because Vedanta is more like a scientific manual, which you cannot read and understand the way you read a work of creative fiction like a novel or short story. So that is Tama Prakasha Viruddha Swabhavayoh. Swabhava means their own intrinsic nature, inherent nature. That is, I the aham spiranam, that's my true nature, and everything else that I objectify, that I understand, they are mutually opposed to each other. So there cannot be any kind of adhyasa. Advaitins say one superimposes his characteristics and himself on another. So dharmi adhyasa, dharma adhyasa. When you superimpose the characteristics of something on another, it's called dharma adhyasa. When you superimpose yourself on something, it's called dharmi adhyasa. We'll come to that soon, shortly. So itaredra bhava anupapatto. So tadatmyam, itaredra bhava anupapatto. So anupapatti means logically untenable. It is absolutely unacceptable from a logical perspective. See, it is siddhaya. That being so, there can be no adhyasa. The dharmanam cha api sudaram itaredra bhava anupapatti. So a dharmi adhyasa is not possible. Tama and prakasha. Vishaya, Vishayi. And then their characteristics, mutual tadatmya, mutual superimposition, one mistaking for the other. Or Atma Anatma tadatmya. And also the characteristics of Atma and Anatma. Anatma means Antakarana, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. All the Shadur means all these characteristics of Antakarana. That is Anatma. And Atma is Sarvavyapitvam, that all this Ekameva Dvaidam, total absence of Sajadiya, Vijadiya, Sugata Bhedas. That's the implication of Ekameva Dvaidam. That is the essential Swabhava characteristic of Atman. And its opposite is the characteristic of Anatman. That Tama Pragasa Viruddha, Vairuthyam is there. So, therefore, there cannot be any kind of adhyasa. This is Shankara Grantha. Roughly speaking, more or less like a Puravaksha. Shankara himself is playing this method, because he wants to drive home his own point of view, because these are possible objections. And by the way, there are different views among scholars as to why Shankaracharya brought these different counter points. One reason, of course, this is Sthula and Nidhananyaya. Another one is he had to face similar objections from different scholars. For example, when he had the 15 days debate with Mandana, he was the author of Brahma Sutras, that is Jnana Karma Samucheva, that is discussed in course of time. It's a combination of Jnanam, that is Atma, that is Jiva Brahmaikyam, and then continuation of these rituals, Sapta Hayuriyat and Sapta Somayat, 14 Vedic Kriyas and Yagas should continue together. Your Jnana, Advaitic realization, and also rituals should go together even after realization. That's the view of this Jnana Karma Samuchevada, which is referred to in Brahma Sutra itself, and of course in Sureshwara's Bhashya, but we don't have access to any of the original works except the works of Mandana, who wrote Brahma Siddhi, which is one important book on Jnana Karma Samuchevada. So they cannot accept the idea of adhyasa, because if they accept adhyasa, then they accept the vivarta aspect of all this world. Vivarta means the apparent transformation. Brahma appears to have become this world. Just like, the tantu or the threads of cloth appear to have become this cloth, or the mud appears to have become the pot. How do we know? It only appears. You break it, goes back to mud. Or you can tear into pieces of cloth and it goes back to the threads. But if you make curd or dahi from milk, it cannot go back to milk. If you make oil from oil seeds, it cannot go. It's parinama, real transformation. Ramanuja Sankhya, or most of the non-Advaitic schools of Vedanta, and also Sankhya system of philosophy, they accept this parinama. But Vedantics accept Vivarta. So Vivarta can be established only if you establish Dhyasa. So, iterether bhava anubhavatto siddhayam tadharmanam cha api sudaram iterether bhava anubhavatihi. So, I think we have read it. Then is tad vibereyena vishayanaha tadharmanam cha vishayadhyasaka. So, again, I mean, in the opposite direction, Vishaya, Vishayi means the subject and its characteristics being superimposed on Vishaya and its characteristics. So it's called Arthadhyasa is there, There are just a few examples I shall give. One is, I shall try to give a few examples. Samsargadhyasa is the most common thing you can understand. Superimposition of the attributes of one thing or another. For example, you bring a crystal, a white crystal near a red flower. In the redness of the red flower, that is the superimposition of the qualities or properties of the red flower in the red color will be superimposed for some time on the crystal flower. It's called samsarga, means close proximity or close connection. So that is one. And then there is called Sarupa Adhyasa. All these are different forms of Adhyasa. Raju Sarpa. Not just qualities or characteristics. So when you see a piece of robe in a semi-dark room, you mistake the robe for a snake, not in palms, because the rope resembles the snake that you have seen the previous day in a forest or in a zoo. The color, the shape, all these are altogether. So the entire sarpa is superimposed on the entire rope. So it is called sarupa. Whole sarupa is superimposed. In the context of samsarga dhyasa, only the red color of the red flower is superimposed on the crystal, which is red in color. So sometimes it can be Sobhadhyaya with regard to attributes, it can be Nirubhadhyaya. It can be Arthadhyasa, means Adhyasa, superimposition at the level of object. Or it can be at the level of the cognizer, that's called Jnanadhyasa. Now, tad vipariyena vishayana tad dharmanam cha vishay adhyasaka. So, anyway, all these ideas later on gave shape to Bimbavada of Verna Prasthana, and it's called this Avachedavada of Bhamadi school of Vajaspati. Now coming to the next. It is Mithya Bhavidum Yuktam. Here you have to understand. Mithya is not your Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, not that Mithya. Here Mithya means Asat. It is an emphatic no. Such a possibility is impossible. It is not there. Mithya. It means no. It is not Anivachaniya. If you bring Anivachaniya meaning on this Mithya, then you'll be joining Siddhanta Paksha. But actually this is a view coming from Purva Paksha, a non-Advaitic school, representing most of the, or all of the non-Advaitic schools of Vedanta. Because for them, Mithya, as they understand, is totally different. Now, for your information, some of you must have read books on different subjects, different works of different philosophers, who may tell you why Shankaracharya's Mithya is absolutely gibberish. People talk like that. The problem is, non-Advaitic philosophers like Ramanuja, Madhva, Nimba, who wrote Vedanta Pariyada Saurabham, Beradeva, the Achindi Bheda Veda. All of them equated Mithya with Asat. And this is a very important point that most of the brothers who have no access to the original works of Sutra, Sri Bhashyam, Sutra Prakashya, commentary on Sri Bhashya Ramanuja, and also Shankaracharya's works. Mithya is not asat. Shankaracharya himself has very clearly stated. At one level you have Paramartha Satya, Paramarthya Satta, which is Sarvikaratita, Trigala Abadhita, Avasthatraya Abadhita. I don't have to explain all this because you are all familiar with this, being studying and teaching for years. So that is Paramarthya Satta. It is Ajam because it always existed. It is Avinam because it always remains unchanging. Avinashi, it doesn't die. It doesn't have to take birth because it's always there. It cannot die because it's always there. So that is the real implication of Paramarthika Satta. And below that, Vyavakharika. We are sitting here, we're discussing, Shastra, the teacher, the subject we are teaching, and Shishya, the disciple, students. All these are there, but they are not Vyavakharika, not Paramarthika. Dvaita level. Below that, there is Pradibhasika, which is conceptual. The Sarpa is not lying there, it is in the mind of the person because there's not enough light. So he has seen the Sarpa. The Smriti Rupaha Purvatrahuvasa later in the Lakshana Vakya of Dhyasa, I will come very soon to that. You have seen the snake in the zoo and that in your mind, that is Pradibhasika, only Pradibhasa. And you are superimposing that Pradibhasika Satta, the Vyavakharika Satta, which is a rope lying in front of you. So when you understand that it's not Sarpa, the Pradibhasika is cancelled, and Vyavakharika you understand. When you become a Brahmakyani, Vyavakharika is also cancelled, Paramarthika. And below that there is Asat. And Asat, what is Asat? Asat is something that cancels itself. Vanthya Putra. If it is Vanthya, it's not a Putra. If it is Putra, it's not Vanthya. So, Sasabhishana. All these are mutually cancelling concepts. It's called Asat. Which means even intellectually, we cannot even think of such a thing. It cannot even be conceived of unless you want to be certified for insanity. Because you can say it's Vanthyaputra, impossible. Now the problem is Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, all these. You know what they did? They equated Shankaracharya's Vyavakharika with Asat. Which means we are not sitting here, we are not discussing Brahma Sutras, this is not Mayavati Ashrama. Who can say that? So refutation is absolute insanity. So one major problem for you, for who study these comparative philosophical systems is non-Advaitic interpretation of Brahma Sutras. They equated Shankaracharya's Vyavakharika for Asat. And also they equated Shankaracharya's Mithya and Maya for Asat. Mithya and Maya linked to Vyavakharika. Shankaracharya has written long passages in the Brahma Sutra itself, refuting Vijnanavadis, who are the only philosophers in Indian tradition who equated Jagat with Swapna, and who refused to accept the reality of external objects. That is one of the important thesis of Vijnanavada Yogacara philosophers, Dignaga and others. Vidyapti Matrava Siddhiva Subhantu's great book and Asanga Yogacara Bhumi. All these books, they emphasize the idea that external objects do not exist. These things do not have any real existence apart from our own Vijnanam, our own awareness. If we don't see them, they don't exist for us. Shankaracharya says, no, you are wrong. He said, these things do exist, but at the Vyavakharika level. Now that's why, but we know why I'm mentioning this point. This is one classic example. Mithya iti bhavidum yuktam. Mithya is arivachaniya in Vedanta terminology. But that is not the meaning of mithya here. Here mithya means no. It doesn't exist. Because the word mithya in Sanskrit language could also mean a total rejection. So here Purvapakshins are concluding their Shanka, all these possibilities of adhyasa, whether it's samsarga adhyasa, tadatmya adhyasa, surupa adhyasa, or any of the adhyasa at the level of dharmi or adhyasa at the level of dharma, characteristics, and also the experience. Those things are not possible, therefore adhyasa is absolutely unthinkable. Your view of adhyasa is wrong. This is the conclusion of Shankara Grantha. Now Siddhanta begins only with the next Tathapi. Now Siddhanta, this is Advaitic view. Samadhana Bhashyam is called. So Shankara Grantha, Shankara Bhashyam, and Samadhana Bhashyam. Tathapi, you are right. Bhashyakaras, you are right. Tamapragasa Viruddha, that's absolutely correct. But unfortunately, that's what we are experiencing in our own life. Tathapi Anyonyasmin Anyonyatmagadam Anyonya Dharmamscha Adhyasya Idretara Vivekena Atyanta Vivuktayohu Dharma Dharminohu Mithya Jnana Nimittaha Satyanude Mithinikritya Aham Idam Mama Idam Idi Naisarkikaha Ayam Lokavya. Shankaracharya says, you are right, Mithya is, nobody accepts, Advaitis don't accept Mithya as a fact. They only accept as a loka vyavahara. In our own life, we experience this. I am Sachidananda Swarupa Brahman. But I think I am falling sick. So when I use the word Sachidananda is falling sick or Brahman is falling sick, it isn't impossible. So we are attributing the characteristics of falling sick, changes in body and so on, mind and so on, hunger, thirst and so on. All these we are superimposing on Atman, and we think those things are real. Body is real, hunger is real, all these are real because we superimpose Atman on them. So this is what we find unfortunately in this world. Don't think Advaitins consider Adhyasa as a big principle. No. You see, this is what we find. So Adhyasa will be explained in these following lines, taking examples from Rajasarpa Bhranti or Chuktiga Rachada and so on. These are all illustrations. But the ultimate purpose is how we ourselves superimpose upon ourselves our own Atman, the characteristics of an Atman. An Atman means, the Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira. All these Karana Sharira, all these constitute an Atman. All the Panchama Bhautika Prapanchas, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Hangara, then, or Puryashtaka means called Panchamahabhuta, Panchapranas, and then avidya, kama, karma, and all these mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, all these together called anatman. So we superimpose those ingredients of anatman, they're called characteristics on our true self, atman, and we consider them to be real because we attribute the reality of atman on all of them. Unfortunately, this is what loka vyavaharaka. So loka vyavahara, that is an important word to be understood. So you find the commentators will tell you loka vyavaharaka means what we normally find in this world. Now this line, this is the real Siddhanta, is an explanation of adhyasa. First of all, this gives a clear understanding of the Swarupa, Karana, and Phalam of Adhyasa. So for that, for a clear understanding, you should be able to read it in the correct prose order. See, complex sentence. So first you should begin with this first Satyanade Mithini Kritya. That's how we begin. Satyanade Mithini Kritya. Then Atyanta Vivikta Yohu. Then Iteredra Avivekena. Anyonyasmin. Anyonyatmagadam. Anyonya Dharmamscha. Adhyasya. Mithya Jnana Nimittaha. Aham idam mama idam idi naisargika ayam loka vivahara. So this each point should be understood. So adhyasasya swarupaha nimittam and phalam. But exactly the dynamics of Advaita. In fact, the entire Sutra Bhashya, according to some scholars, Adhyasa is the most complex subject to understand. Not because it is so profound, because it is something that we all experiencing. But you have to understand it in that perspective. And that requires a difference in our perception. That's why the Adhyasa is more complicated. So first, we'll come to this. Satya Anade Mithini Kritya. Here, so Satya means Swarupa. Anuta here means Anirvachaniya. See, so the reference is to Shuktiga Rajada illustration. So you are seeing in front of you this Shuktika, a mother of pearl or maybe a seashell. That is the real thing. And what is Anuda here? Anuda is the Rajadam. Rajadam is not total imagination. It isn't asat. Why? Because a thing like Rajadam exists. And you have seen that somewhere. And the Smriti Rupa, the memory is in your mind. And idam, ayam shuktiga, idam rajatam. So this is, you are pointing a finger of the object in front of you. It is shuktiga, mother of pearl. And there, what you are seeing is a mother of pearl. But in your mind is Rajada Buddhi. But you forget that what is the Rajada is actually only in your mind. Rajada Smriti is there, but not Rajadam. But Rajadam is not absolutely unreal. You cannot superimpose something that is absolutely unreal upon anything. You can mistake Rama for Krishna. And you can mistake Krishna for Rama, but you cannot mistake Rama for an elephant. Because that is impossible, like Vanthyaputra. Of course, every Drishtanta has its own problems, and Drishtanta cannot be equivalent to what is exemplified. So when you superimpose something on something else, what you're superimposing is not absolutely unreal, it is not asat. It also has got a vyavaharika status, because the sarpa or the rajadam is seen in somewhere in a jewelry shop or in a forest, a sarpa. That memory is there. You can have memories only if you are seeing that object is vyavaharika level. Memory is based on, memory is like anumana, because anumana is based on pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means direct perception. And that becomes a vritti, a smriti, a samskara that is brought to the surface, and it connects with what you see in front of you, which is only a piece of seashell, shuktika. And you superimpose this Rajada Buddhi on the shuktika. So the shuktika is in front of you, and Rajadam is in your mind, it is anirvachaniya. So later you find the Khyadivada is the very important subject. So Advaitins accept Anivachaniya Khyati. It is Anivachaniya. You know what is Anivachaniya means? Something uh, that is not absolutely real, but not absolutely unreal. It's like Shankaracharya's definition. So, sanna, pyasanna, vibhyat, nidana, etc. You cannot verbalize it. So, Satyanadi Mithini Kutya, etc. Then Atyanta Vyuktayohu, Dharma Dharminohu, Mithya Jnana Nimittaha. So, Atyanta Vivikta means totally distinct and different. And Dharma Dharmi, but they also, they are one is Dharma, other is Dharmi. Then Mithya Jnana Nimittaha. So Mithya, that is Mithya Jnana means Brahma. So Suttiga Rajada Mithinigaranam is happening in this illustration. They are mutually distinct and different, but still you mix each other. So Mithinigarana itself means that formation grammatically also implies a few things. Krishniyati means you're acting like it is actually Mithinigarana doesn't happen. As if Mithinigarana takes place. Really, you cannot find the Suptiga and Rajada coming together, it doesn't happen. But in our mind, it appears as if it is happening. And according to Advaita, this Adhyasa is responsible for the entire life, world, our experiences, our emotional, intellectual, all experiences are based on Adhyasa. If we get out of Adhyasa, then there is no long distance to Brahma Jnana, according to this. So, Mithya Jnanam, Mithini Kritya. Then what happens is, Anyonyasmin, mutually, Anyonatmakadam, the mutual entities are being superimposed. It is Naisargika. Naisargika means, by its very, it's Anadi. Swabhavika means Naisargika, sometimes, Anadi, it's going on happening, it is Swabhavikataya means by its own nature. A Bijankara, this is going on. We don't know when this started, whether Bija is the cause or Angura is the cause. Don't know. It's going on in this world. That's the whole dynamics of human life and the phenomenal world existence. Everything is only this Naisargika, spontaneous, natural, effortless. Is going on, it has been going on. So this is the Parihara Grantha, means the response to the Purvapaksha. Now, this part of the Bhashya is simply called Vodghata. Vodghata means you are entering the subject not directly but creating a background. That is meaning Vodghata. Chintam Prakriti Siddhyartham, that is means. So you are creating a situation for introducing the reader or the student to enter the subject gradually. So this is an important point, remember. Satyanade means Kritya, etc. This is how it begins. Rajada Smriti is Mithya. Rajada is not there. Rajada is not Asat. And Rajada exists only as Smriti in Antakarana. And because of this misunderstanding, this Adhyasa is happening. So the Siddhanti doesn't say that Adhyasa is a reality. Adhyasa is not a reality. Adhyasa is a loka vyavahara. Loka vyavahara is not reality. See, what is happening, what we normally find with every human being who is Atman, he superimposes on his own Atman, on his own identity, Nama, Rupa, all these Anatman entities. This happens. So this world is going on. So this is an important point. Remember, Chintam Prakrita Siddhyartham Upodghadam Prachakshati. Sutrena Adhava Brahma Jignasa. It is a, for example, it is a Upodghata, etc. Now we come to the next. Now the question arises, what is this Aha Koyam Adhyaso Namayati? Uchyade Smriti Rupaka Paratra Purudhishtavasaka. This is especially a direct reference to the views expressed by Panchapadika, by Prakasha, sorry, by Patmapada, Panchapadika and Panchapadika were by Prakashatman. So what is its adhyasa? Smriti Rupaha, Paratra, Purvodishta Avabhasaka. So Smriti exists and it helps you. Paratra means Suktigaya. Purvodishta Avabhasaka. Purvodishta means you are seeing this Rajadam. So in your mind, Rajada Buddhi is there. So Smrtihi Rupamiva Rupam. Atadrupi Tadrupa Avabhasaka. Tari Panchapadika. So something you superimpose on something which is not there. Avabhasa itself means the word implies it's not factual, but it happens in our life. Now here important point is, in the Sutra Bhashya definition you find, Supadanija Varninde Bhashyam Bhashyavido Viduhu. So a Bhashyagara has to explain this in the light of Lakshana and Pramana. Lakshana Pramana Bhyam Vastu Siddhi. So the Sutra Bhashyagara has to explain what is the Lakshana here. So Lakshana is clearly, Adhyasa Lakshana is given here. Adhyasa Lakshana is Smriti Rupaha Paratra Purvodishta Avabhasaka. So now this Lakshana of Adhyasa is only one part of explanation of Adhyasa. After some time you find another, others mean, the well-known point is that is, which is very important. I will explain this, What is not there, in which it's not there, but you superimpose atasmin tadbuddhi. That is the ultimate definition of Adhyasa. That is from the Drishti Sushti standpoint. So this is the first Lakshana. And Anyasya Anyadharma Abhasada na vibhijarati. So this is the conclusion. You can see later the next coming line. Tam kejit anyatra anyadharma adhyasaga iti vadanti. And then one important point is Sarvathapi tu anyasya anyadharma abhasatam na vibhijarati. This is a pramana. Lakshana pramana. So all philosophers, including Buddha philosophers who are not accepting Veda Pramanyam, they also accept Adhyasa, because they also accept Khyadivada. For example, Asakhyadi is the view of Madhyamikas. We'll come to that later. So this is the first point, remember, Adhyasa Lakshanam is Smriti Paratra Purvodishta Avabhasaka. This is from the standpoint of Srishti Drishti Prakriya. Srishti Drishti means there is Srishti is there. You perceive something because it is there. So there you have to remember, you think of an Ishvara creating this world, and then all of us experiencing this Avasthatraya, Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti. All these are implied here. So this is view of Vidyaranya and Panchadasi, then Vedanta Paribhasha and all that. This is Srishti Drishti. That's a mainstream in Vedanta. Drishti Srishti is the view of Gaudapada Karika and also Yoga Vasishtha and others. The higher perception. understand this. So this is one. Next one. Tam kejit anyatra anyadharma adhyasa iti vadanti. Now here is a reference to Panchakhyadi, the five Khyadivadas are there. One is Anyatha Khyadi. Tam kejit. This adhyasa, according to some people, they believe that you are superimposing something on something else. So Anyatha Khyadi is in the view of Nayayikas and Kumari Bhattas. I will also belong to Virana Prasthana. According to them, when we see the object in front of us and we forget that it is something that exists there, and when we relate that, try to understand it in the light of our own smriti, which is Rajata Smriti, then we miss the idea that Rajata is not factual, it is not Pratyaksha Siddha, it is not being perceived by eyes, and it is only existing in my mind, that we totally forget and we mix that Rajata Smriti with the real object in front of us, with the Shuktika. And then what happens is we mistake that Shuktika for Rajatam. In the context of real adhyasa in our life, this should be understood in that light. Because Shuktika, Rajatam, or Rajasarpa, all these are given examples to show how we ourselves superimpose Atma in Anatman, Anatman in Atman. When we get up from Jagrat or Swapna or Sushupti, especially about Sushupti, when we get up, suddenly we understand ourselves to be, this is my name, this is my nature, this is my hand, this is my property, and agamidam, mamayidam, etc. This happens because the Atman that we experienced without being aware of it in Sushupti, and that Atman is forgotten. When we get up, we come back to Jagra state. This Sushupti experience is forgotten, and we think we were just what we were in Jagra state. So Swapna, Sushupti aspects are forgotten when we get up. That's why when we get up, we don't remember, we don't relate ourselves to be what we are seeing, Drashta or Swapna state or Sushupti or Jagra state. We just connect ourselves with what we were just before going to sleep. And that's why it is called Anyata Khyadi. Now, according to some of the schools, Atma Khyadi, Rasa Khyadi. Atma Khyadi is the view of the Yogacara philosophers. That is, Yogacara is a school of Buddhist idealism. That is, just to give an important introduction to Buddhism, so maybe not very commonly understood. In Buddhist tradition, after Buddha's passing away, when the Buddhist monks came together in the first Buddhist council, they remembered Buddha's teachings. Because many of the Buddhist monks who have seen Buddha, who learned from Buddha, were still living there. From their memory, they put together in Pali script Buddha's teachings, the Tripitaka, Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. But after 400, 500 years, different schools of philosophy began to emerge in Buddhism, that is, Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas, who are more linked to Hinayana tradition, and Vijnanavada and Shunyavada, belonging to Mahayana tradition. According to Mahayana, that is Madhyamikas, that is Nagarjuna's followers, they believed in some kind of what you call nihilism, Shunyavada. For them, nothing exists. So Akhyadivada is not relevant. But Yogacharas were different. Yogacharas can be called subjective idealists. Dignaga, Vasubandhu, and others. According to them, only external objects appear to exist, but they do not really exist. Only Vijnanam exists. So, according to them, this is called Atmakhyati. All errors are because of our own misconception. Now, again, Kechitu yet adhyasagata viveka agrahana dibandhanaka. This is a view of Prabhagaras and some schools of Madhyamikas also. Another school, Sankhyas and Prabhagaras. So, according to them, Akhyadi, they don't accept Khyadi at all. They think that this adhyasa happens because of viveka agrahana. We are not able to clearly understand that silver is only a memory and Shuktika is something Pratyaksha Siddha. Shuktika they see in front of them and silver exists only in our mind. So Rajadasya Adhyasaka and also Shuktika, Viveka Agrahana, that discerning wisdom is lost. As a result, they mistake Shuktika for Rajata. According Anyetu Etradat Adhyasaka Tasyeva Viparita Dharmatta Kalpanam Achakshati. And this is the view of Nayayikas and Bauddhas, Madhyamikas. Okay, remember, the Khyadivada is a complicated thing. It should be understood only in connection with Anivachaniya Khyadi, which is the view of Advaita. That's what I'm coming to that. I want to emphasize that point. Anivachaniya Khyadi is what we are concerned with. Anivachaniya Khyadi means this Rajata Buddhi is there, but Rajata Buddhi doesn't emerge in a total vacuum. Rajata exists, the Vyavahari entity. The Smriti is there in our mind, and that Rajata we superimpose upon the Shuktika. If it were totally asat, then you cannot do this Adhyasa. If you're totally real, then also you cannot do Adhyasa. But it exists in our mind as memory. We are seeing Rajata sometime in the past, and that real experience becomes a vritti. Vritti becomes a vasana, samskara, that is accumulated in the chittam. And when you see something in front of you, which resembles Rajata, or in the context of Vajjasarpa, you see in front of you a rope which is similar in some ways to the Sarpa that you're seeing somewhere else. That Smriti connects, and then you mistake one for another. Similar in our own life, Loka Vyavahara, in our own individual life, our chinta, vichara, emotions, feelings, all this happen at the Vyavahariya level. All these are there already in our system. And then when we wake up from Sushupti, in Sushupti, of course, we were identified with Atman. But when we are identified with Atman, we are not aware of it. That's the difference between Brahmajnanam and Sushupti. Sushupti also we are identified with Atman, but Dvaita Abhava is there in Sushupti. After all, if Dvaita totally goes away, we should realize the supreme truth. But Dvaita Abhava doesn't necessarily become Brahmajnana. Dvaita Bhava exists because our ability to experience Dvaita disappears. So Swarat Dvaita is not there for us. That's why we are Agrova, Mesagova, Simko, etc. But when we practice this, later we'll come to that, this sadhana sadhushta sambhati, part of this system. Sudamani other books is given more simplified versions. When we practice sadhana sadhushta sambhati, Then we practice that is Sravana, Marana, Nididhyasana. Then also we experience Dvaita Bhava, but we are able to experience Dvaita Bhava with total awareness. In Sushupti, we experience Dvaita Bhava. We don't know we are experiencing Dvaita Bhava in Sushupti. So it doesn't make a difference in our mind. That is why in Advaita, this world, like Rajada, is not totally asat. Rather, it is there. It is not there at that time, but it is there somewhere else. It is because it is there somewhere else. It is not asat, but we are experiencing it right in front of us when we are seeing the Suttika. It is not totally asat. It is sat, but only in the Vyavakarika level. That's why Advaitins take this Anivajiniya Khyati. We can discuss later. Now here, Sarvathapi, this is the conclusion of one part of the discussion. Sarvathapi, in all respects, according to all philosophers, apit anyasya anyadharma avbhasadam na vibhijarati. There is no difference of opinion among philosophers that some kind of misunderstanding really happens. What is that? That is, some kind of adhyasa happens, people are not able to remember their true nature. And then, of course, so I think you have adhyasa lakshanam, remember? Smriti rupaha paratra pavadhishthavabhaska. Adhyasa swarupa is anyasya anyadharma avabhasadam na vibhijarati. So lakshana and swarupa are already explained here. Lakshana means smriti rupaha. What is Lakshanam? Lakshanam is something that distinguishes it from everything else, its own unique feature. Swarupa is its own true nature. Anyasya anyadharma abhasadam na vibhijarati. Means it applies to all philosophers. It is common, loge prasiddham, that's what it's called. Another example is given here. तथाच लोके अनुभवः सुक्तिगा हि रजतवत् अवभासते एकचन्द्र द्वितीयवत्. Now here one example is given here. तथाच लोके. Now Bhashyakara gives two examples. So one example is this, the previous one, the Suktiga Rajata, etc. Now another example is given here. Similar tatha saloki anubhavaka. You see rajatavat avabhasate. So what is the what? That means this jnana is not correct. Rajatavat, the Shuktiga only appears to be as if it were Rajata. Then what about Eka Chandraka? The reason is Brahman is Eka. In the previous Drishtanda, Suktiga is there, Rajata Buddhi is there. Or Sarpa is there, and Rajju is there. But somebody can raise this objection. Here Brahman is only reality. Ekameva Advitiya. There is no Sajadiya, Vijadiya, Sugata Bheda. So how do you explain this Adhyasa in the context of Brahman? So Chandra Ekaha, only one sun. Sadvitiyavat. It appears to be existing with another one, along with another one. Avabhasate. Brahman is Eka. So this particular example gives, to emphasize the point, this could happen in Brahman also. So this standa is one moon. It appears to exist accompanied by another one. Sadvitiyavat avabhasate. This another drishtanta is given here. Now again there is a Purvaksha. Katham punaga pratyegatmani avishayi adhyasa visheda dharmanam cha. Now pratyegatmani means antara, means it is pratyeka, it is within, and is avishaya. So the Brahman or Atman is not an object, it is avishaya. How can adhyasa takes place? Or the vishaya on avishayi pratyagatman, and also vishayasya dharmanam adhyasa. So this is called sabhavana bhashyam, So can adhyasa really happen? So the reason for this Puravaksha is this. First of all, Atman is not pratyaksha like Shuktika or Rajju. In the context of Rajju and Sarpa, we can understand. Shuktika, Rajja, we can understand. Shuktika, you can see the pratyaksha. The pratyaksha pramana, you can see that. But Atman is not like Shuktika. So again, this both Shuktika and Rajada, we are familiar with the Vyavaharya experience itself. Vyavaharya and Pratibhasika. This is the Pratyaksha Anubhava. But Atman is Pratyagatman. It is not Vishaya. So that example, that Drishtanta doesn't apply here. This is the Puravaksha's view. That's why he is raising this objection. Atman is our Sarupa, our true nature. Adhara of everything. So a Drishtanta taking examples from Vyavaharya and Pratibhasika levels. The context of Shuktika, which is we are seeing, and Rajada, which you are seeing somewhere else in the same Vyavaharya world, or Rajju, which you are seeing in front of you. Okay, means taking a Sarpa, of course, and Sarpa that you are seeing somewhere else. That Drishtanta is understandable. But how can you prove that we are superimposing an Atman in Atman and Atman in Atman, because Atman is not Pratyaksha Vishaya, and also it is Avishaya. Sarvohi Purovasthide Vishaye. Vishyantaram Adhyasati. Purovasthide Vishaye. You should see it in front of you, like you see Suktika. And you are superimposing Rajada Buddhi, which again you have seen somewhere else. Purovasthide means you are seeing in front of you. Vishyantaram Adhyasati. Yushma Pratyaya Apedasya cha Pratyagatmanaha Vishayatvam Pravishi. You said, this Yushma Pratyaya Apedasya. This Pratyagatman never becomes a lakshya or object of this Yushma Pratyaya. I mean, you can also imply enter idam idanta prapancha. So we understood. Yushmat is used here because it is directly opposed to asmat. But Yushmat should be understood as representing entire Drishya Prapancha. All the entire Anatman is implied by the word Yushmat. So he says, Yushmat Pratyaya Abetasya Pratyagatmana Abhishayatum Pravishi. You said many times that this Pratyagatman is never objectified, can never be indicated by Yushma Pratyaya. And you also said that this Atman is Pratyagatman. So that is the objection, and the answer is Uchyade. Na tava ayam ekantena vishaya. He says, no. Atman is not absolutely, totally unknown. We all know Atman. Only we don't know Atman as our own true nature. That's the only difference. Everyone knows Atman. Even an atheist knows Atman. But he doesn't know what is the true nature of his own identity. That he doesn't know. That is an important thesis in the Vedanta. Uchyade na tavat ayam ekantena avishaya. See, if you're totally avishaya, ekantena avishaya, then nobody will bother about inquiring about Atman. So in the Bhamadi, Vajaspati, at the very beginning of this Puravaksha, the Shankara Grantha says, अथ यत् असन्दिग्धत्वम् अप्रयोजनत्वं च न तत् प्रेक्षावत् प्रतिवित्सा गोचरः यदा समनस्केन्द्रियसन्निकृष्टस्फीतालोकभक्ति घटः करणदन्ता वा तथा च idam brahma idi vyapaka viruddho vyapti. So vyapti vairuddhyam is there. That's a very important point to remember. I didn't mention this at the very beginning because to be mentioned later. That's why. So see, asandigdhatvam aprayojanatvam. First of all, we are all taught that Brahman is I mean Brahman is everywhere. Sarvam khalu idam Brahma. And I am Atma Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. Then why do we bother to inquire about Brahman? And not only that, this is raise an objection to the first sutra itself. Asandigdhatvam and aprayojanatvam. You should have some doubt about something. Then only you make an inquiry. Adhado Brahma Jignasa. Jignasa means inquiry, investigation into something. You make an inquiry only when the inquiry has a purpose to serve. It cannot be asandigdha without any doubt. And also, it should not have aprayojanatam. It should have some prayojanam, some benefit. Then Bhamadikara Vajaspati says, Prekshavat Prabitsa Gocharaha. Yatha Samanaskendriya Sannikrishta Spida Lokavati Ghata. So you are seeing a ghata, a pot in front of you. So it is protections that you know it is what it is. So you have no doubt about it. See in front of you a ghata, you don't say where is ghata, you don't ask. You have no doubt. And then you should have a purpose, prayojanam. Tathacha, then he says, Karadantava, I mean, counting the teeth of a crow. How many teeth does a crow have? You don't make an inquiry. So it should have a purpose. It should have some doubt, justification for making inquiry. So if Atman is totally ekantena avishaya, if Atman is something that is not known, they can never be known, then you don't make an inquiry regarding that. It should be unknown, but there should be a possibility of being known at some point. And also for you have benefit. But if Atman is totally unknown, if it's totally unknowable, there is no prayojanam, there is no doubt, there is no benefit. So Bhashyakara says, no. Natava ayam ekantena vishekha. Tavadayam ekantena na vishekha. No, it's not like that. Why? Because all of us have got Vishesha Jnanam and Suru Samanya Jnanam. Two types of Jnanam, Samanya Jnanam and Vishesha Jnanam. Samanya Jnanam everyone has got. Everyone has got. So when we look at an object, I'm seeing an elephant. So elephant is objectification. It happens between the object and the other subject. And then when you fall sick, I'm falling sick. And then you say, well, my illness is gone. So who is the I here? The possessive case, my. Who is the I? So it is not body or mind because my hunger is gone. It is not mind. Hunger may be okay, but then you always when you make inquiry inward and more inward, behind the objective world there are the senses. Behind the senses there is a mind. Behind the mind there is buddhi. Behind the buddhi there is somebody else, and you identify yourself the I, my intellect, etc. So who is the I? That is our spiranam, aham spiranam. That is a samanya jnanam which everyone has got with regard to his own surupa. But this I is the all-pervading, sarvavyapi, the absolute reality, the ekameva dvitiyam atma. That we don't know. That is Vishesha Jnana. Without Samanya Jnanam, there will be no justification for Vedantic inquiry. But without Vishesha Jnanam, you will not get real benefit out of it. Vishesha Jnanam happens when you study Shastras, then Sravana Manana Nidhyasana. Then we call, in fact, the end of Chatusutri Bhasha itself says, Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya is the penultimate state. But Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti is ultimate state. So you can find the end of the Bhashya, it comes here, somewhere in Sutra Bhashya. Gaunamithятmano sattve putra dehadi bandhanat sad brahmatma amitevam bodhe karyam katham bhaved अन्यष्ट व्यात्म विज्ञानात् प्राक् प्रमातृत्वमात्मनः अन्यष्टस्य प्रमातैव आत्मदोषादिवर्जितः देहात्मक प्रत्ययो यद्वत् प्रमाणत्वेन कल्पितः लौकिकं तद्वदेवेदं प्रमाणं त्वा आत्मनिश्चयात्. So aham brahmasmi, this anubhuti, it is the ultimate purpose, goal of human existence. Gaunamithятmano sattve putra dehadi bandhanat, etc. So, Sad Brahmatma hi ityevam bodhi karyam katham bhaved. So, when you reach the ultimate aham brahmasmi anubhuti, then only you get Vishesha Jnana. But Vishesha Jnanam can be achieved only when you begin your inquiry with Samanya Jnanam. What is Samanya Jnanam? The real I. That's the beginning. That's why Bhashyakara says, Natavat ayam ekantena avishekha asma pratyaya vishetva. So asma pratyaya vishay means aham spiranam. Aparokshatva cha pratyagatma prasiddhihi. So aparokshata means sada pratyakshatva. So this aham pratyaya is sada pratyaksham. Everyone at some point can relate to his own identity as something that goes beyond all objectifications, emotional or intellectual understanding. The I is a witness behind everything. That is aparokshatvacha. That is sada pratyaksham. It is not pratyaksha in the ordinary phenomenal or empirical sense. It is sada pratyaksham. This, it is aparoksha. It's sakshat aparoksha Brahma. Pratyagatma prasiddhihi. So, pratha jnanam, pratyagatma jnanam. So, as aparoksha, there is only one reality, that is one Chaitanya. So, this is the response to the Purvapaksha. It gives an objection saying that if normally we can do adhyasa only in the context of things visible in front of us. Katham punaha pratyagatmani avishaya adhyasa vishedha dharmanam. So normally sarvohi purovasthite vishayantam adhyasati. Vishnu pratyaya pedasya cha pratyagatmanaha vishayatvam pravishi. So Bhashyakara says, no, Atmajnanam is not ekantena vishay, Brahma Atma. Is samanya rupa, agam, that praditi, that spiranam is always there. Without that, actually no one can take to spiritual life. No one can take to spiritual life or seriously take interest in Vedanta studies or any higher pursuit without this inherent feeling when there is somebody like I who is distinct and different from my senses, mind, intellect, and so on. And that is the beginning of spiritual inquiry. And then eventually you understand, you reach Vishesha Jnana. And at that stage you understand this Atma is Sarva Pratyaksham. It is Aparoksha. That is the first step in today's class. We'll continue maybe in the upcoming session. So, okay, thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu